Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning to everybody in the disciples class. Good morning to those who are joining us, maybe through one of our social media postings as we post this class to our FCC social media. If you are here for the 100th time, or you are here for the first, glad you are here. I believe you're in the right place, and I hope you are encouraged. This is our weekly disciples class Bible study. And one thing I know, one thing I believe, is that when we come around this word together, whether it's in person or it's virtual, I know and I believe that we're being encouraged, we're being challenged, we're being blessed, we're receiving something from God as we spend time just unified in our spiritual journey. And that's inherent in the name of this class and certainly in the name of our church. We are disciples. We are constantly striving to deeper levels of discipline and spiritual journey and experience. And so I hope this is one of those times for you. We are going to be in Isaiah 43 today. So that's where you're going to want to be in your Bibles, Isaiah 43. We're just going to be looking at just a couple of three verses there. Isaiah 43, specifically looking at verses 18 through 20. Let me start off by telling you this story. Brazilians use this word that is almost untranscribable, untranslatable. The word is saudages, right? I even struggle to say it, right? Saudages. That's the word. And most dictionaries will translate saudages as nostalgia. It's almost, but not quite. That's my opinion on the definition. Almost, but just not quite there yet. It is used to describe the wistful, almost sad feelings that people have about happy memories. You understand what I'm saying? When I say that, I'll repeat that again, just so you can kind of think about it just a little bit. This word saudages, right? It is a word that describes the wistful, almost sad feelings that we have about happy memories. You can have saudages for a lot of things. Maybe it's a place. Maybe it's the home that you grew up in, right? Maybe that's the connection that you can feel about that happy memories. But it's this almost sad feeling about those happy memories. So it can be a place. It can be experiences. It can be seasons of our lives. Maybe we have saudages about our youth days or our youthful days. And we certainly describe those. Every person has a different terminology or definition about what those days may be exactly. But you understand what I'm talking about. What I've learned in my own life is the older that I get, the more saudages I feel, the more fondness that I have for previous things and things of the past. Maybe that's film. Maybe that's movies. Maybe that was a television show. Maybe those were good experiences or good memories. Maybe the easiest way to describe it, we rarely watch anything new. I mean, it takes something to get us to watch something new on television, but I am thankful for things like Amazon Prime Video and Netflix and all of those streaming, YouTube TV, right? All of those streaming services that we have that can take us back into some of those or help us to relive the origins of our saudages, right? If you don't like what's on TV today, you can turn the clock back through any of those streaming services, and you can watch things like the Andy Griffith Show. You can watch things like the Twilight Zone or Cheers or Roseanne or Growing Pains or whatever it is that that fits with you. And the same is true for music. Music has this incredible ability to unlock things in our mind that we can actually vividly not just remember moments through the time capsule of music, but we can almost remember the certain smells and sounds and tastes that are attached to certain elements of music. It has that ability, and I'm thankful for satellite radio and Spotify. That's where I live more times than not. Thank goodness that we can relive the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, selective music in the 90s, maybe the R&B stuff, right? I know I'm talking to the wrong crowd, but we can relive that good music, and I can share that with my kids who absolutely care nothing about that. Well, maybe Liz, the rest of them, not so much. Not so much, but we can journey backwards, right? We can hit back on the origin of our saudages, and in some form or fashion, we can relive and maybe rethink days gone by. It is wistful nostalgia. Wistful nostalgia. We have an amazing connection to the past. And we have these time capsules. I've just given you a couple, but certainly there's more, right? We could sit around a coffee table drinking coffee, sharing stories with those that we have maybe grown up with, or we have been around for a number of times. That's the same type of time capsule as maybe a television show or a record can produce inside of our spirit. And so we have this amazing connection to the past through these time capsules. But here's the thing about that. Here's the cautionary tale about that. Taking that journey too often can actually be counterproductive. And just as we take that journey of fond memories of the already seen and experienced, sometimes it's possible that we develop a bad habit of taking another journey into the past. And we access not necessarily the fond memories, but we access the frustrations, failures, and regrets, right? We access the mistakes, the opportunities that were not taken, the wrong things that were done, or the wrong things that were said. And when we journey down that road, when we take that type of journey, that will cause us to begin to ask the questions of why. Or pose the questions of if only, right? If only I would have. And it causes us to think about what might have been. And that is a counterproductive journey for disciples of Christ today, right? I want to dial in on that. That is a counterproductive journey for disciples of Christ today. Now, why do I share that with you today? Certainly it's coming out of Isaiah 43. We're going to get to that in just a second. But I share it with you because I think it's an important message. And maybe it's an important message for this time, or maybe it's an important message for somebody who's important to you in your world. I share it with you this morning because if we're not careful, reliving both the successes and the regrets of yesterday, right? Reliving both the mountaintop experience of what was or the valley experiences of what was can render us ineffective in our lives and in our spiritual journeys today. Isaiah 43, that's where we're going to be, verses 18, 19, and 20. Isaiah 43, in that passage, God is speaking some words to his people to help them avoid living their lives in this type of tragic scenario. And he tells them, and by the way, he's talking to you and I in these verses as well, but he tells them to let go of the things of yesterday and begin to focus on what God is doing in your life today and in your life tomorrow. And so there's a few things that I want you to see, just a couple of points that I want to give to you that hopefully will be encouraging to you, that will challenge, that will bless, that will inspire, that will take us deeper in our spiritual walk with God. Here's the first thing I want you to know. You've got to make sure, and then we're going to get into verse 18 here. Make sure you know where you live. Right? Make sure you know where you live. Now, Neely and I, we drill this into our kids all the time. We have drilled this into their minds from an early age that if ever there was an emergency, they would be able to tell an officer where they lived, right? Growing our kids all the way up to where they are now. We have drilled that into their minds. But I'm not talking about, when I say make sure you know where you live, I'm not talking about where you physically live. I want you to focus in this morning on where you are emotionally living. And I want you to focus in on where you are spiritually living. And I want you to rethink, kind of dial into that interpersonal GPS and re-examine to make sure you know where you are living. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 18 says this: forget the former things and do not dwell on the past. Do you know what that word dwell actually means? That word dwell means to reside. Where you dwell is where you live. And God is saying through the prophet Isaiah, don't live in the past. He's not saying don't remember the past, right? That's not what he's saying. In fact, just a couple of chapters later, God is going to say in Isaiah 46, I believe it is, in verse 9, remember the former things. He's going to say that in just a few chapters. So God is not saying don't remember the past. He's saying that is not where you live. You've got to recognize that is not where you live. Don't live there. He's not saying not to appreciate it. He's saying not to live there. And I'm kind of re-emphasizing that point because I think sometimes we have a difficulty of letting go of the past because it was good. Or at least in the world that we remember and we've created, it was good, right? Other people have difficulty of letting go of the past because it was bad, right? Whether it was good or bad, both can become equally disabling. And what I'm encouraging you to think about and what I'm encouraging you to do this morning is to examine where you live, right? Where you live here in that gut, right? Our head, our heart, our spirit. Do we have regrets? Absolutely, we all do. Have we made mistakes? Absolutely, we all have. Do we have incredible successes? Absolutely, we all have. But when we slide into that mentality of thinking that our best days are behind us, and maybe at some point in time, we have all felt that way. And certainly I'm not shouting that down at all because we have all felt that way. But don't believe the lie that is inherent in that phrase, right? If we fall in and begin to think and feel like our best days are behind us, I want you to know that is not true. It is not a true feeling, and it's not a true statement. And I'll explain more of that in just a second. Because, and I want to challenge you to really dig in on this spiritual truth right here, and that is when you live in God, the best is always yet to come. The best is always yet to come. Do you remember the story of the burning bush, right? Moses was tending sheep in the desert, and he comes to a mountain called Horeb, where he encounters a bush that was burning, and yet it was not being consumed, right? It was on fire, but it wasn't burning up. And a voice says, I am the God, your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And he told Moses that he was the one that was going to lead the people out of Israel, the people of Israel out of bondage in Egypt. And Moses says to God in Exodus chapter 2 and verse 13, suppose I go to the Israelites and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what's his name? What should I tell them? And God replied and said, this is what you are to say to them. I am has sent me to you. That's Exodus chapter 2, verses 13 and 14. I am has sent me to you. I am. It's an all-encompassing name. It is a now name. And God is saying to Moses, I may be the God of your ancestors, but I am not the God of the past. I am the God of today. I am the God of forever. I am. I am. And God is calling us. I believe when we read the Bible for all that it's worth, and we don't just look at it as a history lesson or knowledge to be downloaded, but rather challenge and instruction and blessing and all of those wonderful things to move me forward in our life. And I put myself in that scripture. Then when I do that, God is calling you and I to get out of the past and get into today. What holds us in the past is different, but the call is the same, to get out of the past and get into today, right? The past, as good as it was, cannot help you anymore. The past, as bad as it has been, cannot hurt you anymore. It lives somewhere else, and now you reside somewhere else. Today, what God is doing today is what he is calling us in to focus on. I understand there's consequences, right? Successes and failures of the past, there's consequences that carry over through maybe the rest of our lives. Look at the story of David. David is a great example of how consequences continue to move. And yet David did not reside in the past. He continues to move forward with God into the future. Focus is what I'm wanting you to see this morning in this passage. Focus on what your life is still becoming. Focus on what your life is still becoming, not what it used to be. God is calling us to have that focus. There's a couple other things here in Isaiah 43 that I want you to see, and you can write this down in the margins to 18, 19, and 20. Just four words that I want you to think about: stop, stare, focus, and concentrate. Stop, stare, focus, and concentrate. I remember thinking about this concept watching one of our kids, Liz Parker, growing up, and she still does it to a certain extent today. But early on, when she was growing up and she was a little kid, when she was really dialed into something visually, she would stop and she would stare and she would focus and she would concentrate. And you know what I'm talking about. It's when we squint our eyes and we really dial in and we're looking intently at what's in front of us, right? We're looking intently at maybe something across the room. Something has caught our eye. We stop and we stare and we focus and we concentrate. And the way that we do that physically with things that are visual, that we see, we need to take that same understanding, that same action, that same concept, and we need to learn to do that with our spiritual lives as well. God said through Isaiah in verse 19 of Isaiah chapter 43, "See, I am doing this new thing, and now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" And of course, the key word in that verse is perceive, right? And I can say with certainty that God is involved. And hopefully you believe this as well. God is involved in the life of every person. And I'm gonna just talk to you, every person who is dialed into this Bible study. I want you to know that God is involved in your life, in every aspect of your life today. And he's involved today. He's doing things today. It applies to you. It applies to me. It applies to every single one of us on the planet. But here's the tragedy, right? Here's the tragedy. Not everyone perceives that. Not everyone can see the hand of God in the details of their lives. Not everybody can see that. I'm wearing a hat, so I'll pick baseball, right? That's the one I have on, so I'll pick it. That's unplanned, but that's the way we're going to go with it. It could be any sport. I was going to say pick a sport, but then I got Yankees on, so we'll pick baseball, right? To some people, they view baseball or consider the game of baseball as slow, dull, and boring. To other people, it is anything but that, right? To some people, it's just, ugh. And to some people, they see this mental battle that is going on with every pitch. They see a strategic battle going on with every throw. And this is a chess match that's being played with a bat and a ball. I think art would probably fall into that same type of category, right? We could put up a piece of art in a room. We could all gather around it. We could look at that art, and to some people, they would see absolute genius. And to some people, they would say, it looks like a 4-year-old drew this or painted this piece of art, right? How can you see genius when I see, a finger painting by a toddler? In both of those cases, right? Music could be the same thing, right? Maybe you like one style of music. Maybe you like another style, and when you listen to jazz, you hear the story that's being told inside of that, and you hear both the joy and the sadness that's being conveyed through the instruments. And other people hear that, and it just sounds like pipes being banged together, and they don't see the beauty. It's a matter of perspective. In all of those cases, it's a matter of perspective. It's a question of perspective. And in your life and in mine, it is also a question of perspective. To some, it may look like chaos. It may look like luck. It may look like a series of random events. But those with spiritual perspective see the hand of God working in what takes place from day to day. What appears on the surface to be a problem is actually an opportunity. That's a perspective, right? What appears to be a crisis is actually a moment for greatness. That's a perspective. What appears to be a chance encounter with a stranger is actually the demonstration of the love of God. That's a perspective, right? It's a question of perspective. It's the choice of perspective. And do you know how to develop that perspective? You stop, you stare, you focus, and you concentrate. You examine what is going on in your life, and you look for the hand of God. I think sometimes we want the hand of God to come down and just like, slap us in our face so that we have, so that we can see it and he has our attention and the hand of God has our attention. But if we will just stop and stare and focus and concentrate, we will begin to see the hand of God moving in ways that were previously unseen to us, because now we have our perspective right. Isaiah says, as the voice of God, I want you to see this. I'm doing this new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Stop, stare, focus, concentrate. Here's the last thing, the last verse that I want to look at here, and I want you to think about this. I want you to think about the confidence in which you live, right? Live with confidence, knowing that we serve a God who, as we sing in that hymn song, will make a way, right? We either believe God is going to make a way or God is not going to make a way. And I believe our God is always making a way. Now, he may make a way that isn't the way that I would make or the way that I want him to make, but God will always make a way. And it's really a great message for us, because we can't just let that be a hymn that we sing. It has to be the life or the way of life that we live. And so we declare through our faith that no matter what, we believe God will make a way. He says through Isaiah in verse 20, I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. There are some people who are watching this today, or maybe months down the road, they find this video on our social media and they click in and they start watching and listening and studying along with us. But there are some who are watching this today who are living in the desert, whose lives have become a wasteland. And you're saying, God, take me away from this, right? Take me away from this. Take me to greener pastures, right? Take me somewhere. Give me a new city. Give me a new house. Give me a new job. Give me a new mission. Give me a new life, right? Because I'm tired of this wasteland. And here's what I want you to think about. Don't look for greener pastures. Don't look for greener pastures. Instead, look for the oasis. Look for the oasis. Look for the hand of God creating a stream of refreshment in the wasteland of your life. Begin to believe that God will create a stream of refreshment in the wasteland of your life. And when I say wasteland, maybe that's not the totality of life, and rarely is that ever the case, but maybe there's a section of life, maybe there's an area of life that is drier than others, that you are struggling in more than in other areas. Maybe that's what we're talking about. But allow your faith to begin to see, and your faith begin to believe that God is going to create a stream in the desert. He wants to take the defects, right, of life that we have and turn them into strengths. We have incredible stories throughout Scripture of God doing just that. He wants to take failures and turn them into successes. Don't just look for a way of escape. Look to God for a way of victory. Don't expect him to just transport us out of the desert, right? But expect him to drop an oasis inside of the desert. And when we begin to live with those types of holy expectations, the desire to live in the past actually becomes a thing of the past. And when life becomes about what God is doing now, that's where excitement comes from. That's where joy begins to bubble up. That's where anticipation begins to take over. And that is where the past loses its chains on our lives. Now remember, remembering, that's not the problem. We're talking about residing. And if we're in a situation, or you're in a situation in which you're residing in the past, I want you to know those chains can be broken, because God is at work in your life today. He is doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? He is creating something new. It is springing up. It is springing up. And so change your address from the past into the present. Examine your life. Squint if you need to. Stop and stare and focus and concentrate until you begin to see, until you begin to perceive the movement of God that is occurring in your life. Because our God is creating a way. And I want you to know today, the good news of the gospel says the best is yet to come. I hope that's an encouraging word from Isaiah chapter 43. I hope that challenges you. I hope that blesses you. Certainly, if you have some comments, some commentary, some questions, some follow-up, email me, and I can put that into a video for discussion. Russell@fccgranbury.org. .org, right? .org. Yeah. Send me an email. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to discuss that. But I hope you've been blessed through our Bible study today. Hope you've been encouraged. I hope your morning of worship has been wonderful. And as we continue to rest through the course of the day. And I encourage you, rest through the course of the day if you can. And just be refreshed in your mind, in your body, and in your spirit, and know that the best is yet to come. Be blessed, be great. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.